Lesson 7.9 is Greek Jewry in the Birkenau Revolt, Auschwitz II. One of the largely untold stories of the October 7, 1944 Birkenau Revolt is the role of the Greek Jews who were amongst its organizers, heroes, victims, and survivors. Holocaust historian Gideon Greif wrote that according to the diverse sources, the Greek Jews were those that were the initiators of the Sonderkommando Revolt that broke out on the Sabbath day, 7 October 1944. Corfu had raised Greek military officer Lieutenant Colonel Yosef Baruch, a demolition and explosive expert, was amongst the organizers of the overall revolt committee and had hidden gunpowder and explosives in the walls of Crematorium 2, where the revolt was intended to begin. Yosef Ben described the role of Baruch in the Sonderkommando Revolt and his inspiration for Revenge and Revolt. The plans to blow up Crematorium 4 in Auschwitz were sewn together amongst the Sonderkommando apparently in June 1944, and for this need, connections were made between the Greek Jews of the Sonderkommando and the other Jews who served with them. From the testimonies we have Yosef Baruch, a former lieutenant colonel in the Greek army, who was assigned to the Sonderkommando in the month of May 1944, was amongst the initiators of the plan for the Sonderkommando rebellion. On 30 June, Joseph Baruch identified the corpses of his parents, residents of Corfu, and that of his friend, the lawyer Yom Tov Yakoel, amongst the bodies that were taken out of the gas chambers, and his wrath flamed up within him that this miserable position was cast upon him. In the need to plan for a revolt, Baruch aligned himself with the Kapo Kaminsky, a Polish Jew, who in practice began to coordinate the preparations for the revolt. The plan for the revolt was to blow up all 4 crematorium on the 15th of August 1944. But 2 hours before the set time, when the preparations were underway, they announced suddenly a transport of 4,000 Polish Jews that arrived, accompanied by a group of SS. There was a fear that in the presence of so many German army in the camp, it would lead to a disaster for the revolt, and thus it was decided to postpone the date. That was the first failure to carry out the uprising. So in the revolt, when the Sonderkommandos in Crematorium 2 were locked in a room by the Germans at the beginning of the revolt in Crematorium 1 and 4, Baruch was neutralized for all activity. Crematorium number 1 was the revolt of Polish Jews, Eastern European Jews, political prisoners, etc., etc. And 4 were Greek Jews and other Jews, and then they ran to Crematorium number 3. The Greek Jews started the revolt in Crematorium 4 by lighting mattresses, killing several German soldiers, and running with the other inmates the relatively short distance to Crematorium 3. There, with the other Sonderkommandos, they continued to kill German soldiers, but the building was surrounded. Before they surrendered, they sang a Greek partisan hymn, one verse of the Greek national anthem, and Yitzchak Baruch, a Salonican Jew of Skopje descent, placed a bomb in the furnace to blow up the crematorium. Those surviving were quickly executed. French and Hungarian Jews also participated in the revolt in Crematorium 3 and 4. While there had been at least 2 previous aborted attempts at a general camp uprising, and an additional initiative that had been called and cancelled, this time the Greek Jews decided that they'd go through with the plan and take the lead to instigate the revolt in these 2 crematorium. The 11th Sonderkommando workers knew that their time had come, and they were doomed by the Nazi effort to eliminate all witnesses to the death process. They chose instead to initiate and participate in the 7 October 1944 revolt in Birkenau. Baumann remarked, the 11th Sonderkommando is unique amongst a sequence of squads that worked in the crematorium and rightly takes a special place in the historiography of Auschwitz. Yet its actual history is somewhat confused, particularly regarding the role of the Greeks. We have, for example, 3 photographs of the Sonderkommando at the burning pits taken place in the summer of 1944 and smuggled out of the camp in an attempt to inform the world of the systematic slaughter occurring in Birkenau. The Greek Jews also in the Sonderkommando were incensed by the gassing of the attorney Yom Tov Yakoel, one of the leaders of Salonican Jewry. Fotini Tomei in her book added that in addition to singing the Greek national anthem, the Greek Sonderkommando revolters raised a makeshift Greek flag in the air. The physician Albert Menashe, former Salonican inmate in Birkenau, published a memoir on Birkenau in 1947, including many recollections of the Sonderkommando and the revolt. So he noticed also that they revolted in 3, and that during the revolt they sang the Greek national anthem. There was one Jew named Ugo Venezia from the smoke in crematorium 3, went on the wall of the crematorium and fell over into crematorium number 2 and joined them, and that's the version which all these Greeks from crematorium 2, including Leon Cohen, had, because they ran from 4 to 3. So he knew what happened in 3 and who came, and I guess they talked real fast, or he had that impression. One of those from 4 actually survived. His name was Mizrahi, and he wrote the first testimonies in Tel Aviv, but no one believed him and he was hardly known. And then there's the story about Najari, who actually left notes. He was number 3, but he had some notes before that he had planted in the ground before the revolt in case he never came back to tell the tale. So then let's say about 25 years ago, we found the notes and a diary was made of it. And all these events were separate from the revolt in crematorium number 1, which were Ashkenazim and political prisoners, and neither succeeded. They sang the Greek national anthem. They were captured Greek partisans. They sang a partisan hymn. They had military experience from Greece before. Some were even officers. Then they were partisans, and they were taken. And this is part of the Jewish tragedy.